Hello everybody, today we are talking about midpoint and distance formulas. We will look for midpoint formula first, and how do we get that formula? So the first thing is midpoint. What is midpoint? Midpoint is a point of a segment that divides the segment into two congruent segments. For example, I have this segment, and I have this segment and I have points. For example, this is point A, and this is not on scale. I'm just trying to show you how do we get the formula. This is point A, this is point B. The coordinate for point A is A, small a, and the coordinate for point B is a small b. This is a midpoint. Again, it's not on scale. So this is a midpoint. How do we get this midpoint? Like, I don't know what this midpoint is going to be. So when the midpoint means when it divides a segment, this is a segment AB, into two equal congruent parts, then it's called a midpoint. So how do we get this formula? The midpoint on the number line, okay, this is a number line. Midpoint on the number line, when the coordinate of the midpoint is the average mean you divide by 2, average or mean of the coordinates of the end points, A plus B. Average or mean means you add and divide by 2. I divide by how many points you have. So I have these two end points, and the mean or average of these two endpoints is giving me a midpoint. So this is the formula for the midpoint on the number line. Now let's do a midpoint formula on a coordinate plane. Coordinate plane means x-axis and y-axis. That's what coordinate plane. Let's pick a coordinate plane. I'll pick that one. And again, I'm not going to draw on scale, okay? So like this. Now I have a line up here. And I have 2 points, endpoints A and B. This is A, that's a B, and I have a midpoint, that one. Okay, now if you guys closely pay attention, coordinates for A is going to be x1. Coordinate of A for y is going to be y1. The coordinate of endpoint B on the x-axis is going to be x2. On the y-axis is going to be y2. Now how do we get this midpoint? We're going to get this midpoint. Okay, how do I get this x-axis? This one, or for the midpoint. So the coordinate of the midpoint are the average of the x coordinates. The average of x coordinates, which means x1 plus x2 divided by 2. Right? How do I get the coordinates of m on the y-axis? It's going to be average of y coordinates, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So that's how we derive our midpoint formula. So my midpoint formula is going to be x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And I have a comma, like it's like an order pair for the midpoint, and this is going to be m equal. Now let's do the examples for this. I'm going to do example for that one first. Okay, so let's do that example up here. Example number 1 for the number line. For example, I have a segment, and again, by segment I mean I have these numbers up here. I would say that's -4, probably that's -2, over here somewhere 0. I'm not drawing on scale, I'm trying to just get something. And this one is +2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, and so on. So my points are, for example, on up here, like this is -3 actually. That's my point P. And I have another one on 10, and this is my point Q. Now the question is asking, find the midpoint of the segment PQ. Like that's my segment. I'm just going to draw the black line on top of this. This is my segment, and I'm looking for the midpoint. So since we have this formula for the number line right here, then I have -3 plus Q is 10 divided by 2. 10 subtract 3 is going to give me 7/2. You simplify, it's going to be 3.5. So your midpoint is 3.5. Okay, let's do an example for this one. For the on the coordinate plane, example number 2. Now in this case, the question is asking, find the midpoint of the segment PQ. Find the midpoint of the segment PQ, right? Now P coordinates are -3 and 3. Q coordinates are 1 and 0. Now if you guys pay attention, I have two order pairs, like X and Y and X and Y. Now, if that's the case, then I'm using a coordinate plane midpoint formula, which is that one. Okay, first we use this one because it was just a number line, just x-axis. This one is both. So the first thing first, please label them. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Now make sure that you label them, because sometimes the students just mark them both X's and these both Y's. That's not how it goes. This is point P and point Q. So let's use the formula, the one we have here. X1 is -3 plus X2 is 1 right there, divided by 2, comma. Y1 is 3 plus Y2 is 0 divided by 2. So what am I getting? -3 plus 1 is going to give me -2/2, 3/2. So if you guys check, this is my X coordinate and that's my Y coordinate. This is my X coordinate, okay, for the midpoint, and that's my Y coordinate, because we got that from the average of Y, and this one we got from the average of x-axis. So what is the midpoint of PQ? You're gonna say PQ segment midpoint M is equal, you're gonna simplify this, which is -1, and you simplify this, it's gonna be 1.5. You know, they cancel out, so I got -1. Okay, so that was the example for this. Now we have another example. We're going to use the same midpoint formula, but the example is, this is example 3. The question is asking, find the endpoint. Find endpoint, like one of the endpoint. Like I have a midpoint, I have one of the point A probably, and I'm looking for point B. So this is what the finding endpoint. And for this finding endpoint, I'm using up here, that's graph. Okay. So the question is asking the midpoint of the segment CD. Now the C points, I have them. The midpoint M, I have them. But I don't have a D, which is somewhere over here, and I don't have a clue what are the endpoints of that D. It is somewhere here. The D is going to be somewhere here. Okay, that I don't know at all. Okay, so they said the midpoint of the segment CD, that's a CD segment, is M, -2 and 1. You see, this is -2 and 1 for M. And for the C, I have -5 and 7. -5, and 7. What are the coordinates of the other end, point D? What are the coordinates of point D? That's what I don't know. And I'm going to use, since they're giving me a midpoint, so I'm going to use the midpoint formula. And my midpoint formula is m equal x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Now, which one is x1, y1? You just have to label them the way you want. For example, I would say this is the C. The C points are my x1 and y1. For the D, I have x2 and y2 that I don't know and I'm looking for. Okay, the midpoint is -2, 1, which is m right there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace this m with the -2, 1. Okay, for example, let's do one by one because we can't do it at the same time. Okay, or maybe we can. Let's do it. -2 and 1, right? And I can separate them when I'm solving it, but I'm going to plug in as it is. X1 is -5 plus x2 that I don't have it, 2, comma, y1 is 7 plus y2 in 2. So this is what I got so far. Now, how do I solve this? You're going to separate them. Like, for example, -2 is the x value, right? So I'm going to pick the x average right there. So I have -2 equal -5 plus x2 over 2. For that one, 1 equals 7 plus y squared over 2. This is a y coordinate, and this is the average of y's. This is the x coordinate negative, and this is the average of x. So I just separate them so I can solve it. Now, what we do, we multiply 2 both sides, okay, to get rid of that 2. So this 2 and that 2 cancel out, and I have -4 equal -5 plus x2. I'll do the same thing here, times 2 times 2. 2 times 1 is 2 equal, they cancel out, and I got 7 plus y2. This is just a simple equation that we solve usually. I'm going to add 5 both sides so I can get the x2 by itself. Then I got x2 equal plus 5 and -4 is going to give me 1. This one, subtract 7 because opposite operation. Look at the left side of the number. -7 cancel, and I got y2 equal, so -7 plus 2 is going to give me -7, 6, and 5. So what are the coordinates of this endpoint D? They are 1 and -5. And those are the coordinates of D. And that's exactly what they are asking me. Okay, so let's do distance formula. That was all midpoints, okay? And please make sure that you remember this. If one of the endpoint is missing, then you can use the midpoint formula. If midpoint is given and the one endpoint is given, then you can easily find out, but you have to separate them so you can do it. Okay, let's find out distance formula. Now, the distance formula is, that's the distance formula, D equal x2 minus x1 whole squared plus y2 minus y1 whole squared, and everything within the square root. That's my distance formula. Now, if I draw this up here, I want to show you how this works. Okay, so this is my y-axis and this is my x-axis, and I have a segment line. I'm just going to draw that up here, there, and I have a point right there, and I have a point right there. This is point A, that's point B. Okay, now the question is, the distance formula is actually, if you guys pay attention closely, this is the distance formula. It's based on Pythagorean theorem. This is based on Pythagorean theorem. Actually, when we use distance formula, we're really finding the length of a hypotenuse of a right triangle. Okay, when we use a distance formula, this is based on, I'm just going to write this, based on Pythagorean theorem. This is one of my favorite theorem. A square plus b square equals c square. So actually when they find looking for a distance, I'm looking for a distance of a hypotenuse. Look, I'm making a right triangle right there. For example, this is a segment AB and I'm looking at distance for this. So I have to make a right triangle right there. That's my right triangle. And I can use my Pythagorean theorem, a square plus b square equals c square, and I will get the same answer while I'm using the distance formula, and we'll get the answer. So let's try using a distance formula. So because we are doing distance formula, not the Pythagorean theorem, but you will get the same answer either way, using distance or using Pythagorean theorem. So according to my distance formula, you see I have two order pairs like x1, y1, x2, y2. So I have to find out these all these values. For example, this is, for example, that's 2 and this is 2. Point up here, I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9. And what about this one? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. Okay, so my order pairs for point A, my order pair is 2, 2. For point B, my order pair is 9 and 10. Now I'm going to make sure that I'm using my labeling. This is my x1, that's my y1, that's my x2, that's my y2. Please make sure that you label them. This is very convenient when you do that. So I'm plugging in everything in the distance formula. I have the square root. I'm going to make it ahead of time. Now I have x2. This is my x2, so that's 9 minus my x1 is 2 and whole squared. Then I have y2, which is 10, minus y1, which is 2, again whole squared. Okay, let's solve this. First of all, we have to get rid inside the parentheses. So d is equal, again I'm keeping my square root. So I have 9 subtract 2, 9, 8, 7. Okay, so I got 7 squared. 10 subtract 2 is going to give me 10, 9, 8 squared. Okay, let's go to the next step. D is equal, again square root stays. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 is 64. So let's add them together. I have 49 plus 64, and I'm using a calculator. I got 113. I got 113 in the square root. D equal. 113, I don't think it's a perfect square, so I can use my calculator and find out what the answer is for this. For this one, when I plugged it in the calculator, I got 10.63, and I'm rounding 3 decimal places. Okay, so this is my distance between this. And if I'm using a square plus b square equals c square, which we have been learning since like 8th grade or 7th grade, so you can use that too, and you're looking for hypotenuse c square. Hypotenuse is always c, right? So you're looking for that. Okay, this is how we using this. And if you guys have any questions, please comment below and I will help you with this objective. And see you next time, guys. Bye.